It's the final week of scheduled session at the Illinois State House, and plenty to talk about when it comes to what's left to tackle. And of course, you've got the ongoing budget negotiations. Will we see a budget? Will you, the taxpayers, get to see the proposed budget before it passes? Having been on the ground reporting at the State House for the past decade, it's always been among the last things they advance, and you don't really get the details until the final days. So where are we at right now? Tons of legislation having passed. And you can follow this yourself at ilga.gov. If you go to ilga.gov, by the way, welcome back, Bishop on air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And if you go to ILGA, which is the Illinois General Assembly website, and go to legislative reports, we'll just take a look to see just how much legislation they've advanced so far this session. So we'll go to House bills that passed both houses. All right. See this right here under legislative reports, House bills that passed both houses. Click on that and it pops up a report, and you can scroll down and see all of these measures that passed last week, the 16th, the 15th, the 17th, and so on. But if you scroll all the way down, you could see that the House bills that have passed both chambers, 101. All right. So 101 bills have passed both chambers out of the Illinois House. What about Senate bills that passed both houses? Click on that report and you'll get all of the Senate bills that passed both chambers, and they're looking at 78. So 101 plus 78 so far, you're looking at 179 different measures that have passed that could be sent to the governor that he will act on this summer. But listen, they've got today, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The 24th is when they're scheduled to adjourn. Now, they have until May 31st to pass measures that they want to enact immediately, but the deadline of May 31st, that's when they have to pass it with simple majorities in both chambers. If they want to pass anything after that, it's going to take super majorities to pass those things. So clearly, with something as big as the budget that could still possibly increase taxes by $1 billion. If you recall, the governor proposed $1 billion in tax increases back in February when he proposed the largest spending plan in state history of $52.7 billion. But then a couple of weeks ago, his administration put out a memo to state agencies saying, hey, there might be a deficit of $600 million, or rather $800 million in the budget. So you might have to find some reductions in spending. They also noted that because the federal ARPA dollars, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, those federal tax dollars that were meant for COVID response, those trillions of dollars that went out, well, the state governments got a whole bunch of money. And it's telling me it disconnected. Great. It's twice today. So it's a good thing we record these and get these back out to you. So if you do miss anything, you'll be back at it. But regardless, a lot of money being proposed. And we talked previously as well of all of the different types of priorities there are. They passed a bill to spend $68 million on student teacher stipends. It was subject to appropriation, but if they appropriate it, then it's $68 million. They've got, measures to help with farmers in certain urban areas, and those farmers could get subsidies. Well, it's subject to appropriation, millions of dollars. Different types of programs like, fostering curriculum in public schools to focus on climate science, and that would have to have money appropriated to it. You've got, program after program after program after program that they're wanting to create in the new fiscal year, but it's subject to appropriation. How are you going to balance all of these programs with, the amount of revenue that is not necessarily guaranteed? Right? Plus, you've got $140 billion in unfunded pension liability. You've got the infrastructure issues. You've got contract increases for state employees. You've got the governor wanting to spend capital dollars on building new prisons. You've got the governor wanting to start a grocery initiative, $10 million in that. You've got the increased spending for K through 12, $350 million. You've got money that the governor wants to increase for early childhood, creating a new agency for early childhood. That alone is $13 million additional. So, again, all of these programs stacking up. And we've got 5 days now for the legislature to come to terms and to pass a balanced budget. But it's not the only thing that they're advancing. Again, go to thecentersquare.com, celebrating 5 years, by the way, which is pretty awesome. So, join the support, donate, help us stay on the ground and continue reporting what's going on at the State House. But some of the headlines you could see here, some legislators, they want to make sure that, it's not all about spending. Some want to make sure that teachers who have a sexual relationship with students, even if they're 18, it should still be a crime. Right now in Illinois, apparently it's not. So some are looking to get a House bill that did pass the House, advanced out of the Senate, that would hold those adults in authority accountable if they have some kind of sexual relationship with somebody, even if they're 18 years old. You've got other measures that are being talked about that did advance, including revisions to Illinois' Biometric Information Privacy Law. If you're familiar with this, BIPA, the Biometric Information Privacy Act, it's a measure that was passed back in 2008. And it essentially says that if somebody is not giving their explicit permission to have their fingerprint cataloged or their face scan cataloged, then they can sue and get money. One of the first instances of this was, I think, Six Flags, where a kid was going to Six Flags and they said, hey, give us your fingerprints and you'll be able to get better access to Six Flags. And well, he did that without getting his parents' permission, and they sued, and they got a settlement out of that, I believe. But then they get to other cases. Remember, Facebook was sued for violating Illinois' Biometric Information Privacy Act. They settled, and I don't know if you guys got a check, but a lot of people got a check for like $490 some odd. Google also settled a BIPA lawsuit, so people got money for that as well. I believe Snapchat and a variety of other social media companies. So it was clear that this law was being used by law firms to go after businesses for big bucks. And then you had a case concerning White Castle, the burger joint. This case went all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court, where the Illinois Supreme Court said, listen, I mean, the way the law is crafted right now, an employee who had to use their thumb scan to clock in, for each instance that individual clocked in, the way the law is written says that they can sue the employer and get $1,000 each time. Well, if that was the case, even the Illinois Supreme Court said it would be a business killer because it could mean that White Castle is having to face $17 billion in penalties. After getting that and kicking back around in the courts, it wasn't that high of a penalty, but still a very punitive penalty. And state legislators, they did ultimately pass a law, still pending the governor's action, that would essentially change BIPA from being a per instance violation to a per individual violation. So clearly that's an issue that's ongoing. So there's a lot of things that legislators are tackling, some things they may not tackle. A bill that defines woman has been proposed by the Illinois Freedom Caucus, but that's a bunch of Republicans in the super minority. Will this get anywhere? Not quite, but that measure has been proposed. They held a news conference with the Illinois Freedom Caucus last week, but they also were asked about Springfield Pride Fest. It's the LGBTQ Pride festival that happens in downtown Springfield every year. And what was interesting was there's two state agencies that were the top tier sponsors for the Pride Fest, and in particular, questions about a teen drag show where teens were given a goodie bag for an impromptu drag show. And the state having a couple of state agencies sponsor that rubbed these Republicans the wrong way. So that's a story you can go see at thecentersquare.com. But you've also got this story about prosecutors charging 6 individuals out of Chicago with faking robberies to get U.S. visas for victims. And that's an interesting story you can catch as well at thecentersquare.com. All of this while lawmakers also considering changes to pensions. And in particular, police and firefighter pensions. They want to set up a DROP program. It's a deferred retirement option program for law enforcement and firefighters. If, say, they're at retirement age and they want to still work, they can go into this separate program, and they say that it'll help out the pension funds, but others calling it a sweetener, and municipalities pushing back saying we don't know the actual taxpayer cost to all of this. So a lot of stuff's going to happen in the final 5 days here of legislative session. If you want to follow along with it, go to thecentersquare.com/Illinois, thecentersquare.com/Illinois. Sign up for the newsletter, donate, keep us on the ground there, and we'll do what we can to keep you updated here each and every weekday morning with Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate you guys. Again, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.